I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. Today, when I started recording this set of videos, I was not feeling my best. Like, everybody has bad days, but I was just having one of them days that I was like, just like, ugh, I don't know how to explain it, but just not feeling my best. But then I started to read the comments and all of the love that you guys are giving me, and that, like, I don't like, you guys are just something else. Like, the way that I've seen people be happy for me and like my success and the channel has been something that I've never expected to have, or like I was not expecting for people to be genuinely happy. Like, every day I see someone congratulating me for my growth and for my channel, and it's like, guys, guys, you didn't have to, but yeah, I was reading the comments and I got really happy, and so yeah. And another thing that makes me happy is food. And I saw this video that says what American presidents served at US state dinners. So this is what we're watching now, because I have never been to the president's house for dinner, but I hope it's good. Let's see what this video is about, guys.
Official state dinners at the White House, in which the sitting president hosts kings, queens, and heads of state from around the world, are a grand, elegant affair, sometimes. Presidential state dinner meals have ranged from plain and simple fare to gourmet entrees, often influenced as much by social and economic factors as who was occupying the executive office. The menus often reflected the preferences of honored guests, or sent a political message to diners about how Americans like to eat, drink, and be merry. So today, we're looking at what different U.S. presidents have served at state dinners. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and leave a comment to let us know what other White House shindigs you'd like to hear about. Okay, time to play Hail to the Chef. Ulysses S. Grant hosted the first official state dinner on December 22, 1874, hosting David Kalakaua, the last king of Hawaii. But a big fancy shindig wasn't President Grant's idea. It was actually that of his wife, Julia. Turns out she was sick of his preferences for simple foods, what he was used to eating in the military. So she hired restaurateur Valentino Mela as White House steward to add sophistication to events. This kicked off what became President Grant's official state dinners, which, according to newspaper columnist Emily Edson Briggs, were multi-course meals that began with fruits, flowers, and sweetmeats, along with bread and butter to accompany the soup in the first course. Diners then enjoyed a French croquet of meat, followed by the third course of meat and potatoes. Additional dishes included partridge legs, as well as rice pudding dessert. Diners also imbibed multiple glasses of wine throughout the meal, which is understandable. We're gonna need a few bottles of your finest vintage to wash down all that meat.
I mean, that doesn't sound too bad, but it sounds pretty basic. I would still devour that, though. Rice pudding? Okay. I mean, rice pudding is like, I don't know if you can go wrong with it. It's always good. And potatoes are good. Soup is good. Yeah, okay. Good, yeah. Okay, I like that.
Herbert Hoover loved to entertain, although he reportedly had horrible table manners. Supposedly, he even shared his morning eggs with his dogs. But who hasn't slipped a treat to the dog every once in a while? They deserve it. Questionable table manners.
Oh, if you knew how I have my dog. Yeah, you. The queen of the house that sleeps on my bed while I record.
Notwithstanding, Hoover didn't like to eat alone. For formal affairs like state dinners, the president and his wife served multiple courses. One of these dinners included rare species of fish, cold lobster, beets, cucumbers, smothered chicken breast, endive and spring salad, fruits, ices, and candy. The menu was offered to the King of Siam in April 1931, who hopefully wasn't put off by the idea of cold lobster.
I very much like that. Very fresh, very light. I was also thinking about the fact that they probably have to play it safe so that nobody gets, food poisoning or anything. I really like this. I would enjoy this probably more than the first one. The first one was a little bit too basic. This sounds like, mm, I like that. I like that. I don't know why I'm rating these, but that's what we're doing apparently now, so.
President Roosevelt once served hot dogs to King George VI and Queen Elizabeth of England at his
Cool.
home in New
Yeah.
York, which,
I like that.
out of context, sounds like maybe they were having a sleepover and finished the evening playing Sonic the Hedgehog. But the actual reason behind FDR's frugal meal offering is less whimsical. Remember, he came into office during the Great Depression. When the Roosevelts moved into the White House, they adopted a relatively austere diet and cut down on waste to serve as a model to other Americans. For example, they cut out seafood and even soup if there was a sufficient entree. There was no fruit course included. Sweets and desserts were considered a luxury. Entrees were often turkey or chicken dishes in what might be considered a Thanksgiving-style meal if it weren't for the whole Great Depression thing. Side items included affordable vegetables such as lima beans and rutabagas. You know, the stuff your parents had to trick you into eating. On one occasion, the White House served marshmallow-covered sweet potato casserole, which must have been the result of considerable negotiation with the penny-pinching president. According to surviving menus, diners enjoyed wine or sherry, although Cuba's Fulgencio Batista was
Oh, the more you think about that one, the worse it gets. How? What is that? Has anyone tried that? Is that actually good? Is that like a dessert or what? Like, ooh.
been the result of considerable negotiation with the penny-pinching president. According to surviving menus, diners enjoyed wine or sherry, although Cuba's Fulgencio Batista was treated to a whiskey sour in 1942. The White House, they keep track of everything. When President Harry S. Truman hosted guests at formal meals, he was known to serve watermelon pickles and strawberry shortcake, and Fritos. Yeah, you heard that right. Though the Fritos were part of lunch, the snack demonstrated President Truman's simple taste in food. Other items on the menu
Solid.
when Princess Elizabeth visited in 1951 included baked ham and fried potatoes, because a princess can't just live off corn chips alone.
I mean, you can't really go wrong with that, and it's okay.
Like many of his predecessors, President Eisenhower was a fan of simpler foods. Unlike many of his predecessors, Ike loved to cook them himself. When the president hosted the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of Mexico in 1955, his green turtle soup was on the menu. Apparently, Eisenhower was moonlighting as a member of the Foot Clan. His taste did expand over the years, though. When the president hosted King Paul and Queen Frederica of Greece in 1955, the menu showed a growing sophistication while maintaining some personal charm, featuring items like shrimp cocktail and roasted lamb alongside Boston brown bread sandwiches, toasted Triscuits, and saltine crackers. The President of the United States munching on saltine crackers with the King of Greece. That should make you feel better about the hors d'oeuvres at your next party.
The prawn cocktail sounded very appetizing, though. I like that.
The Kennedys, along with their chef René Verdun, changed the game a little bit. When the Kennedys entertained, dinners were shorter and included only 4 courses. Oh my, 4. How scandalous. This was done to leave more time for socializing, cigar breaks for the men, and coffee drinking for the women. Meals included French-inspired and French-named foods like tournée d'Eloise, steak and black truffle sauce, and roast sirloin vert pré, steak with greens and straw potatoes. President John F. Kennedy was also known for serving the first American wine at a state dinner. One of President Kennedy's most celebrated state dinners took place at Mount Vernon on July 11, 1961. The president served a meal of whipped avocado and crab meat mimosa, poulet chasseur, hunter-style chicken, and raspberries with whipped cream brought from the White House kitchen for the president of Pakistan.
Oh, okay. Okay. They knew what they was doing with the food. I like that. I really enjoyed that. Yes? Okay.
No jelly donuts. That's weird. Chef Verdun stayed in the White House when Lyndon B. Johnson became president, but not for too long.
In this picture, he kind of looks like the chef from Ratatouille, and that kind of makes me happy. Like, you know.
Apparently, President Johnson's food tastes were beneath him. LBJ's palate tended towards simpler, down-home meals, which really wasn't Verdun's thing. The chef wasn't shy about letting the president know it either, especially after President Johnson hosted the West German chancellor for a barbecue at his ranch in Texas. After the Johnsons served beans, spare ribs, coleslaw, and beer, Verdun made a point of stating that no such food would appear at the White House, saying, "You do not serve barbecued spare ribs at a banquet with the ladies in white gloves." Well, maybe you don't, Frenchie.
I don't care if I was like a queen, princess. I don't. Why? Why not? Why not? Why not? Who doesn't enjoy that?
Richard Nixon's state dinners were much more sophisticated than LBJ's. At a dinner hosted by the Nixons on April 25, 1972, the menu included imperial crab, roasted sirloin, and stuffed zucchini. That's a pretty fancy spread, but it's nothing compared to some of his other menus.
I just made stuffed zucchini like 2 days ago. It's so good. Oh my god.
Nixon hosted more than 40 state dinners, in which he served lobster en Bellevue, stuffed chilled lobster, contrefilet of beef bordelaise, steak and wine sauce, paillettes dorées, cheese sticks, pommes aux amandes, apples with almond cream, eggplant and green beans, port salut cheese, and vacheron glacé aux framboises, raspberry ice cream. For dessert, maybe instead of "I'm not a crook," you meant to say, "I brought a cook."
I was not hungry when I started this video, and my stomach is growling right now.
To tell with his voice. President Jimmy Carter was particularly thoughtful when it came to his meals. His state dinners were as significant for their politics as for the food, with significant treaties involving the Panama Canal and Egyptian-Israeli policies being hashed out alongside the meals. The Carter state dinners were served along the same pattern as other presidents. Light courses supplemented with heavier entrees, followed by desserts. And what was the biggest state dinner ever held, with more than 1,300 guests, the Egyptian-Israeli Peace Treaty dinner on March 26, 1979, diners enjoyed
Imagine making food for over 1,300 people. That is crazy.
Columbia River salmon, cheese straws, roast sirloin with spring vegetables, and hazelnut mousse with petit fours. When you want a broker piece, don't forget the cheese straws. Ronald Reagan had some great parties during his time as president, which makes sense. He was an actor. Images of John Travolta dancing with Princess Diana of Wales at the White House is just one example of Hollywood and Washington, D.C. coming together under the president, although that particular shindig wasn't technically a state dinner. Nancy Reagan was heavily involved in the planning that went into these dinners, overseeing menus and making sure no mistakes were made. Nancy also managed the introduction of lighter foods to the traditional state dinner fare. Items like pita bread and more salads contrasted with heavier French food that had characterized the previous administrations.
The
Reagans also served California wines, something that reflected their roots. Pita bread and wine from Napa Valley? Turns out you can take the actor out of Hollywood, but you can't take Hollywood out of the actor. Not even old Ronnie Reagan. When people think of George H.W. Bush and state dinners, the first thing that comes to mind is probably the infamous reception thrown in his honor in Japan in 1992, during which he vomited in the lap of the Japanese Prime Minister. Wonder if it was something he ate.
Did that actually happen? What?
Mind is probably the infamous reception thrown in his honor in Japan in 1992, during which he vomited in the lap of the Japanese Prime Minister. Wonder if it was something he ate. But President Bush and his wife Barbara did try to have a nice party when they hosted their own dinners, blending tradition and innovation by adding new items to the menu, much like the Reagans had done.
Why did that happen? What happened? What happened to him? Was that like a medical issue or like, well, obviously, but like how?
While staying true to the meal template. When Queen Elizabeth II of England visited the United States in 1991, she was served lobster, cucumber mousse, vegetables, and elaborate desserts made by executive pastry chef Roland Mesnier, including a raspberry-filled chocolate carriage similar to a souffle the chef had prepared for the royal family of Denmark a few months earlier. By all accounts, the Queen kept the meal down. George W. Bush didn't really enjoy White House food. He wasn't really a fan of fancy dinners, dancing, or staying up late, so he could only stomach about a dozen state dinners the entire time he was in office. And when he did find himself having to throw a state dinner, he kept it simple. When he hosted the President of the Republic of Ghana on September 15, 2008, they served lobster, corn pudding, lamb, potatoes, spinach and beets, and banana coconut pudding for dessert.
Still
What
good.
W's kitchen lacked in fussiness, it more than made up for.
I mean, a lot of the times these like very typical homemade meals can be very exotic to the people that come from other countries. So I wouldn't say it's like boring. It might be boring to someone who lives like, you know, like it's like someone who lives in America, it might be sound like a casual dinner, but for someone who comes from another country, might not. And also these still sound like very fancy. So
Or in quantity. The final state dinner of the Bush administration, served to the President of Poland and his wife, was a bit more elaborate. The menu included items like lemon basil seared striped bass, roasted golden tomato sauce, barbecue shallot sauce, crispy potato tartine, and ginger almond ice cream, to name a few dishes.
yummy.
Michelle Obama was very concerned about rising childhood obesity in America, which led to the Obamas hosting the first of several kids' state dinners in 2012. The event brought together chefs and children for a food summit of sorts, featuring recipes created by kids, all to highlight the importance of healthy eating.
That's
Although
fun.
you know some of those kids had to have snuck in some chicken nuggets, right? The only things kids care less about than eating healthy is math. The Obamas loosened it up a bit when it came to feeding adults, though. The Obama White House incorporated many of the traditional foods of their guests into state dinners, serving a mix of American and Nordic fare to the prime ministers of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, and the president of Finland in 2016. Foods included dishes like canapes of chicken and waffles, served alongside aquavit seafood cocktail, salt-cured ahi tuna with watermelon, juniper, and pickled radish, as well as red wine braised short ribs with hot kale salad and thyme dumplings.
Yummy.
When President Barack Obama and Michelle hosted the President of Mexico in 2010, the visiting head of state was served a mixture of Hawaiian, Mexican, and American items, none of which were ever featured at a state dinner again. Apparently it wasn't quite healthy enough, or tasty enough. It turns out Donald Trump didn't only serve platters of fast food to White House guests.
No way.
He
Okay, that's kind of iconic. I like that. Serving McDonald's? That's pretty cool.
held his first state dinner in April 2018, hosting the President of France and his wife. The elaborate menu featured items from parts of the United States with heavy French influence. Diners enjoyed goat cheese gâteau with tomato jam, buttermilk biscuits, rack of lamb, Carolina gold rice jambalaya, and a nectarine tart with ice cream. That sounds like a hugely tasty meal. So what do you think? Which president would you have loved to dine with? Tell us all about it in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.
Which one would you guys pick? Oh, I nearly liked all of these. I think I don't know which one my favorite one was though.
It's nothing compared
This was pretty good. I just
to stuffed zucchini.
stuffed zucchini. And also everything that has prawns, like prawn cocktails. Yummy. I'm so hungry right now that my mind, like, I can't think. I'm actually gonna go and eat now because I'm hungry. But thank you guys for joining me for this video. Please comment down below which one you would pick from these. And leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!